Part 68. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 671. Nan 11 frowned. What does it have to do with him whether I'm angry or not? I won't hit him. I'm afraid that if you hit me in front of him, I will lose face. Wrong, you said in a low voice. The regent also needs to be dignified. Nan 11 sneered. Do you believe this? Wrong, you nodded. Letter. How could Nan 11 still look half angry after what he said? Besides, she wasn't angry in the first place, but she felt sorry for him, and she was angry with him for so long without saying a word, which really made people want to beat him up uncontrollably. No matter what happened before, whether the pain is severe or not, you shouldn't drag it out. Nan 11 frowned. The injury is getting worse as it is delayed. If you had asked Chu Nanyi to diagnose and treat it early, maybe it would have been cured earlier. Wrong, you remained silent, with an attitude of admitting his mistakes. Nan 11 held his hand, raised her hand and squeezed his strong arm. Does it hurt here? Wrong, you wanted to say it was okay, but when he saw Nan 11's threatening eyes, he nodded slowly. It hurts a little. Where does it hurt the most? Wrong, you pointed to the position behind his right shoulder. Here. Nan 11 asked him to turn around, raised her hand to pinch the spot he mentioned, and massaged it hard for a while. Would it feel better if you press it a few times like this? Wrong, you hummed. It's somewhat effective. Because I haven't practiced martial arts and I don't have strong hand strength, otherwise the effect should be better. Nan 11 muttered. Let's do this. From now on, let Qingyang massage you every day, cooperate with Chu Nanyi's acupuncture, and then take the medicine he prescribes. I don't believe this stubborn disease can't be cured. Wrong, you listened to her tone and whispered, it sounds like unbelief can't cure me. Huh? Nan 11 raised her eyes. Are you still reasonable? Wrong, you shook his head. 11 calm down. In fact, the pain is not particularly unbearable. I'm afraid that if the symptoms get worse and something else happens, I won't be able to accompany you until you grow old. Otherwise, I won't care about the pain at all. Nan 11 said, continue talking. Wrong, you turned around and reached out to wrap her in his arms. Pregnant people cannot be angry. They must stay in a happy mood. This is best for our daughter. Nan 11 hummed. Is there more? Wrong, you lowered his head and kissed her face. 11's belly can support a boat. Can't hold the boat. Wrong, you smiled softly. Then I'll kneel down for 11. Nan 11 stopped talking for a moment. She was quiet for a moment and said in a calm voice, you think I can't bear to treat you? 11 calm down. It's my fault. Wrong, you said. I used to lead troops all year round and didn't have much time to rest. I always thought that I was young and strong, so I didn't take it to heart. Injuries on the battlefield are commonplace, and in war it's hard to avoid catching a cold in the 12th lunar month of winter. The soldiers are training in the ice and snow. Is it possible that I, the prince, am still hiding in the tent and sleeping? Nan 11 said nothing. A general who leads troops in war would not hide in a tent and sleep, but she knew why Wrong you worked so hard back then. Although she was harshly blaming him because of her heartache, she really couldn't bear to blame him anymore at this time. Fortunately, it's nothing serious, and I'll just take care of myself in the future. Nan 11 had already planned several nursing care plans in her mind, and said in a calm tone, from now on, you can rest more and be a pampered little wife. I, the queen, should do more work on government affairs. Wrong, you looked down at her. 11 wants to take back my power. That's right. Nan 11 nodded. Let you be a regent in name only and weaken your power step by step. When you become a beauty who can only be pampered by your beauty, I can recruit beautiful men from all over the world without any scruples. No longer afraid of anyone's opposition. Your Majesty is really cruel. Wrong, you complained, seemingly falsely. Sure enough, the Emperor is ruthless, and these words are not false at all. Nan 11 caressed his face. who makes you not know how to cherish yourself? If you can live a long life, no matter how many ideas I have, I can't make it happen, right? Live a long life? Wrong. You was silent for a moment, then suddenly thought, it would be great if there was a magic in the world that could freeze time, or make us immortal forever. Nan 11 fell strangely silent, looking at him with a particularly strange look. Is this her unparalleled wise regent? Wrong. You. She raised her hand and touched his forehead. What are you dreaming of in broad daylight? Wrong. You grabbed her hand and kissed her. 11 isn't angry anymore. There's nothing to be angry about. Nan 11's voice became softer, but it's just this once. If you have any physical discomfort again in the future, you must tell me in time. You must hide your illness and avoid medical treatment. Wrong. You nodded. He didn't hide his illness and avoid medical treatment, but he didn't pay much attention to it. If he had known that the symptom would gradually become serious, he would have asked Chu Nanyi to prescribe some medicine and take it. So Nan 11 sent someone to summon Chu Nanyi. Chu Nanyi probably expected to be summoned, so he didn't go far at all. He was wandering alone at the gate of the palace. When he heard that Her Majesty the Queen sent someone to tell him, he immediately turned around and go to Taisho Palace. He knew that although His Majesty looked cold and ruthless, he actually became timid when he was in front of His Majesty. If the cold evil syndrome was innocuous, Wrong. You would not let Nan 11 know about it because there was no need to cause unnecessary worries. If the disease was fatal, Wrong. You would not tell Her Majesty the Queen because he could not bear to make her worry. However, this symptom can be treated and cannot be delayed. The longer it is delayed, the worse it will become. The head of the family is still waiting to grow old together with the Queen. How could he not care about it at all? Since it was necessary to take care of the matter, it was destined to be kept secret, so naturally it had to be told to Her Majesty the Queen as early as possible. After all, confession is rewarded with leniency. When they arrived outside the Dajhan Palace, Yin Yu and the others had been called in. The palace maids were preparing dinner. Chu Nanyi was about to let someone know when he saw Qingling coming out of the palace and whispering, "Your Majesty wants you to come in." Chu Nanyi nodded, paused slightly when he passed by her, stretched out his hand to touch her hair, and then habitually touched her head before he stepped into the palace. Qingling looked around and blushed quietly. She always felt that Chu Nanyi's behavior just now was not appropriate. This was in the Dajhan Palace, under the eyes of Her Majesty the Queen and the Regent. How could he touch her casually? Although his actions were so gentle, it was still inappropriate. When Qingling turned around and entered the palace, she decided to find an opportunity to talk to him and let him try to be more careful in the future. "I pay my respects to Her Majesty the Queen and the Lord." Chu Nanyi entered the hall and bowed, respectfully greeting, "Hello, Your Majesty, hello, Lord." "Stand up." Nan 11 sat upright on the chair, her expression calm, her demeanor dignified and full of the pressure of the Empress. "How is the health of the Regent? Do you need to summon the imperial physician to take his pulse?" Chu Nanyi stood up, raised his eyes slightly, and saw Rong Yu sitting aside drinking tea, with a calm expression and a calm look. It is obvious that the Queen has been coaxed. So Chu Nanyi lowered his eyes and said, "If Your Majesty believes in me, there is no need to summon the imperial physician to take your pulse. Their medical skills may not be much better than mine. Besides, there are so many people and so many gossips, I am afraid that it will cause speculation among the ministers in the court. The Regent is in power and has just rectified the court to be clearer not long ago, which inevitably affects the interests of some people. If the news of the Regent's illness spreads at this time, I am afraid it will cause unrest." Author's words. I will write what needs to be written. Yao Yao and Xiejin should appear in tomorrow's plot. The Regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 672. Nan 11 obviously understood this truth and said calmly, "In that case, you first draw up a nursing care plan for me, and I can start after I arrange it." Chu Nanyi nodded, yes. Nan 11 said, how long will it take to be cured? The root cause of this disease is stubborn, and it is impossible to completely cure it. Chu Nanyi told the truth, we can only alleviate the symptoms as much as possible. After a pause, although your majesty is in strong health and is not afraid of cold or heat, you still have to pay attention to keeping warm in the future, especially on cloudy and rainy days. You must not ignore your physical condition anymore. I hope your majesty can supervise it. Nan 11 nodded slowly, you can rest assured about this. Rong Yu drank tea and remained silent. I will go back and make a prescription for recuperation. I will make a plan and submit it to His Majesty in the evening. Nan 11 hummed, go ahead. I excuse myself. Chu Nanyi respectfully and calmly resigned and left. Nan 11 leaned on the soft couch and thought for a moment with a deep brow. She didn't know what was going on in her heart. Rong Yu looked at her intently, his eyes were gentle, but he didn't say anything to disturb her. Not long after, Nan 11 called out to Yin Yu. His Majesty. The weather is getting colder. Please ask the female officials from Siu Fang to come over and make some new clothes for me and the regent. Nan 11 ordered, make more cloaks and cloaks, thicker ones, needed to keep warm in winter. Yunyu nodded, yes. We can add 2 braziers to the hall. Nan 11 gathered her robe, it's very cold to stay in the hall all day. It's my subordinate's lack of consideration. Yunyu Fusion confessed, it's windy outside, and it looks like it will rain tonight. It's the late autumn season, and it will be bitingly cold when it gets overcast. This subordinate, just go and prepare the charcoal fire. Nan 11 hummed, I want to eat something to keep the cold away tonight. To ward off the cold? Yunyu nodded, yes, I will make arrangements now. Also, add another quilt to the bed. Yes. Rong Yu just sat quietly aside, listening to Nan 11's arrangements one by one in an orderly manner, and he couldn't help but have the illusion that he was terminally ill. After Yunyu went down to make arrangements, Nan 11 turned to look at Rong Yu, is there anything else you need to add? Rong Yu thought seriously for a moment, it should be gone. 11er arranged it very carefully. It was so meticulous that he felt that he was already extremely weak and needed to be carefully cared for. He would no longer be able to breathe a little bit of wind or bear a little bit of cold. He was even more delicate than a woman in confinement. From today onwards, you will stay in the Dajhan Palace and you are not allowed to go anywhere. Nan 11 said, I will go to the court by myself early tomorrow morning. After the court, I will have people bring all the papers over. From now on, I will handle government affairs in the Dajhan Palace. Rong Yu was silent for a moment, am I under house arrest? You can treat yourself as being under house arrest. Nan 11 stood up and casually raised her chin toward the inner hall, go over and lie down. Rong Yu raised his eyebrows, 11er. Resist the decree. I don't dare. Rong Yu sighed, got up obediently, walked to the inner hall, and lay down on the bed. Nan 11 followed him over, sat down on the edge of the bed, and massaged him starting from the cervical spine, bit by bit with great detail. Although the strength was not as strong as that of a martial artist, it was not really that weak after all, and the massage was very comfortable for Rong Yu. This kind of strength should be enough. Although Rong Yu holds a high position, he has never enjoyed such special service in many years. He said, even if 11er just tickles me, I will feel it is a great enjoyment. Nan 11 wanted to say something to him, but when she thought about this person's calm appearance, he might be enduring pain that others didn't know about, she felt a pricking pain in her heart, and she couldn't even bear to scold him. So she didn't say anything, just pressed and squeezed him, from the cervical spine to the shoulder side, and then to both arms. Yunyu followed Nan 11's arrangement and gave all the instructions, then prepared a table of hot meals. The two of them had dinner in the Dajhan Palace. Chu Nanyi took his carefully planned seeking the Holy Master for the nursing care plan. At the same time that the plan was reviewed by Nan 11, Chu Nanyi also reported another news: King Huainan has arrived. He is currently at Xie Shaofu's house. I judge that when he enters the palace tomorrow morning, both Xie Shaofu and King Huainan will be honored. At Xie's house, Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. Chu Nanyi replied respectfully, King Huainan originally wanted to enter the palace. He met Xie Shaofu on the way, so they went to Xie's house together. What happened is simple. The king of Huainan and his accompanying guards rushed all the way to the imperial city. They happened to meet Xie Shaofu, who had nothing to do and went to the street to observe the people's sentiments. The king of Huainan did not know at that time that Xie Shaofu had received the news of his entry into the city in advance and deliberately walked on the road. Created a chance encounter. The king of Huainan was originally going to enter the palace to meet the Holy Master. When he met with Xie Shaofu, it was natural that they were enemies on a narrow road. Enemies were extremely jealous when they met. The thunder from the sky stirred the earth's fire. Well, no, he was full of murderous intent. With the gloomy weather outside, there is quite a sense of thunder and solemnity. People on the street felt an unusual atmosphere and fled one after another. Finally, Xie Shaofu greeted them with a smile and diffused the murderous intention, Your Majesty, you have been traveling all the way here. You must be tired. Why don't you go to my mansion to have some tea and rest, after a while, freshen up and get dressed before entering the palace to see the Holy One. This sentence was exactly what King Huainan wanted. So Chu Nanyi, who was standing aside and watched the king of Huainan being welcomed to the Xie family. Following behind them silently like a shadow, of course, were Xie Jin, the legitimate son of the Xie family, and Xian Yuanyao, the son of the king of Huainan, who had also received the news. As for the war in the Xie family mansion at this time, Chu Nanyi didn't know. After listening to the simple narration, Nan 11 glanced at him lightly, Why do I feel that you seem to be eager to watch a good show? Chu Nanyi shook his head, No, I am really worried that there will be a bloody incident on the street, but fortunately there was no such incident. I just don't know whether there will be a murder in the Xie family. It seems that many eyes are watching the king of Huainan during his trip to Beijing, Nan 11 said lightly. He was met by chance just after entering the imperial city. The Xie family should be very lively tonight. Lively? Chu Nanyi thought for a while, if the king of Huainan plans to go to the palace to see the emperor tomorrow morning, I judge that both he and Prime Minister Xie should be injured. I'm afraid it will be even more lively at that time. 2 heavyweight officials in the court were injured. Anyone with a little common sense could guess what happened, and then more questions and speculations would arise. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 673. For example, why did the two of them fight? Because of profit? A power struggle? Conflict of words? Personal grudge? Who made the first move? If things get serious, who will His Majesty and the regent help? What will Xie Shaofu and King Huainan gain from this dispute? What to lose? In short, people's imagination is rich and boundless. As long as a reason is given, people will naturally make countless self-righteous guesses. This is a habit in the officialdom, a trend, and a sensitive and suspicious intuition. Therefore, in Chu Nanyi's opinion, being an official is really boring. He spends all day either trying to figure out other people's thoughts or being guessed by others, and he can't live his life at all. Let them resolve their own affairs. Nan 11 briefly imagined what would happen after King Huainan met Xie Shaofu, and then slowly shook his head. I treat everyone equally, I am impartial, and it is not easy to interfere. Their chores. Housework. Chu Nanyi was stunned at first, and then realized that it was really a household matter. This is a meeting between in-laws. Since they are in-laws, there should be no murder. After all, Xiejin and Xianyuanyao have returned from Huainan intact, and most of the Huainan king's anger should have disappeared. Next, it depends on whether Xie Xiaofu's attitude can influence the in-laws. After all, it was his son who abducted other people's children, and the primary and secondary responsibilities should be clearly divided. So Chu Nanyi was a little relieved and said respectfully, "Your Majesty, do you think the plan I made is okay? If there are no problems, I can give you the acupuncture tonight and take a medicinal bath for half an hour after the acupuncture. Medicinal materials are relatively precious." "Medical materials are more precious." Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. "How expensive are they?" Chu Nanyi's voice paused slightly, and then he said calmly, "No matter how expensive it is, the Lord can afford it." Nan 11 hummed. "What I mean is not about the money, but that the medicinal materials required for medicinal baths are relatively rare and precious." "I have to spend time looking for medicine," Chu Nanyi said. "The only medicinal materials in my hand at the moment are only enough for 3 baths. Once every 3 days, there will be no medicinal materials available after 9 days, and I need to travel far." Nan 11 hummed, "How long do I need to go out?" "It will take 7 or 8 days to go back and forth." Chu Nanyi lowered his eyebrows. "I will give the Lord acupuncture and medicine tonight. After the medicinal bath, I will tell Qingling how to use the prescription. After that, I will go out for a few days and take it internally. Qingling is responsible for the decoction and medicinal bath." Nan 11 was silent for a moment, nodded slowly, and was about to agree when she heard Rong Yu say, "It doesn't matter if you delay for a few days. I have put it off for so many years, I don't care about these few days." Hearing this, Chu Nanyi said calmly, "Don't worry, my lord, the medicinal bath is just for Qingling to cook the medicinal materials in advance and pour them into the bathtub together with the hot water brought by the palace servants. There is no need for Qingling to wait on you personally, so your majesty, there is no need to worry about the protection between men and women." Rong Yu looked at him expressionlessly and remained silent. "Okay, let's arrange it this way." Nan 11 nodded. "Do we need someone to prepare a bathtub now?" "Yes." Nan 11 quickly ordered Yin Yu to prepare, and then Chu Nanyi asked Rong Yu to lie down on the bed in the inner hall. The sky outside is getting gloomier, with dark clouds and heavy humidity. The lights in the Dajhan palace were brightly lit, and everyone was busy. The palace people moved the bath bucket and placed it behind the screen. Chu Nanyi put the prepared medicinal materials into the bath bucket. Yin Yu and Yin's Huang were responsible for leading the palace people to bring buckets of hot water. Chu Nanyi was sitting on the bedside stool and giving Rong Yu acupuncture. Qingling was quietly doing it aside. Nan 11 couldn't help, so she just sat aside and watched, always paying attention to Rong Yu's expression and reaction. At the same time, the atmosphere in the Xie family's study was extremely tense and solemn, depressing and chilling. There was a bow stretched to the extreme in the air, and there was a danger of breaking out at any time. Xiejin and Xianyuanyao stood aside quietly and obediently. Whether it was Xianyuanyao, who was righteous and as strong as a leopard in the military camp, or Xiejin, who had always been proud and went his own way, they were all a little nervous at this time, for fear that the two fathers would disagree. Just start fighting. But their worries were obviously unnecessary. Xie Xiaofu was always calm, and even with some enthusiasm, he personally welcomed the king of Huainan into the palace, led him to his study, had the best tea in the palace brewed and delivered it, and even poured a cup of tea himself pass it to King Huainan. The king of Huainan, however, had a cold face from beginning to end, looking at Xie Xiaofu as if he were a sworn enemy. It is said that you should not hit someone with a smiling face. With Xie Qifu's attitude being so good, King Huainan would not be able to do anything to him even if he was dissatisfied. Moreover, after being a military general for so many years, he already knew that everything could not be solved by force. The generals guarding the border entered the imperial capital and beat up the powerful officials. At best, it was a private matter, but at worst, it would definitely cause turmoil in the court. If the news was leaked and the censor reported it to Her Majesty the Queen, the matter would not end. There was silence in the study for a long time, and King Huainan finally spoke, "Are you ready for the dowry I asked you to prepare?" "Dowry?" Xie Shaofu was silent for a moment, then looked at his son calmly and thought to himself, isn't his son getting a wife? Why do you need to prepare a dowry? I haven't had time to discuss this matter with my father yet. Xie Jin said respectfully, please give me some time. I will definitely prepare a generous dowry and satisfy the prince as much as possible. Prime Minister Xie sighed in his heart. Look at his son. In order to successfully marry a wife, he has really humbled himself. I am afraid that he has never been so respectful in front of his own parents. Prime Minister Xie couldn't help but feel jealous. Father Xianyuanyao coughed lightly, I have reported to His Majesty and the Regent on the day I return to Beijing that Xie Jin will be Xianyuan Xie in the future. His Majesty also agreed, so in the future Xianyuan Xie. Prime Minister Xie turned his head to look at his son, are you serious? Xie Jin nodded slowly. It is impossible for the royal family to marry a man as a wife. It is too unruly. Prime Minister Xie frowned, I think it should be Prince Yao who married into the Xie family. King Huainan said coldly, it is not reasonable for the royal family to marry a man from another family as a wife. Xianyuanyao nodded repeatedly. His father was right. His father was mighty. Xie Jin also said in his heart that his father-in-law was mighty. I think there is still room for negotiation on this matter. Prime Minister Xie picked up the teacup and argued for his son's family status. Jinner and Yao Yao's affairs are destined to bear some criticism. What we should consider now is how to reduce this criticism, reduce secular comments and strange looks, and let the two people face this relationship more calmly. This has nothing to do with who gets married. King Huainan interrupted him coldly, this king didn't agree with their affairs in the first place. Giving in a step does not mean unlimited concessions. If you agree today that your son will be named Xianyuan, this king will not pursue this matter anymore, otherwise there is no room for discussion. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 674. Xianyuanyao actually didn't care that much about his family status anymore. He was now thinking about how to strip Xie Jin naked and do whatever he wanted with her. In the 2 days since they returned to the imperial capital, he and Xie Jin had not done anything serious all day long, and did everything they could to do things that were against the principles of a gentleman without shame. During the day, he went back to the military camp to reorganize and practice, and in the evening he returned to Xie's house to cultivate a relationship with Xie Jin, mainly because the fathers of both parties had not yet met, and Xianyuanyao had not officially moved into the military camp. So he went back during the day and returned at night, so there was no big problem in terms of time. This shameless guy Xie Jin actually kept his word this time and taught Xianyuanyao step by step how to take the initiative. The smart and studious little leopard had been eaten dry and wiped clean from the inside out countless times. It is completely meaningless to argue about who is the husband and who is the daughter-in-law. What he was thinking about now was how to lay Xie Jin on the bed and ravage him over and over again. But then again, what does the Huainan king really care about his family status? After sending Xie Jin and Xianyuanyao out, he said calmly, when will the chief assistant retire? Retire? Xie Shaofu raised his eyebrows, what does the prince mean by this? You don't have to pretend to be stupid with me. You know what I mean. King Huainan said in a cold tone, I can ignore Yao being bewitched by Xie Jin. After all, he is an adult. What can he do? The choice is his own, and the final result is his own responsibility. But as a father, some things can be turned a blind eye, but some things must be planned for him in advance. Xie Xiaofu said, "Your Majesty, you might as well speak frankly. Xie Jin wants to really be with Yao, so he needs a dowry, or to take into account your Xie Xiaofu's face. I don't object if you say it's a betrothal gift," King Huainan said in a calm tone. "The only condition is that you become the first assistant. Step down from your position." Xie Xiaofu held the teacup and said nothing for a while. Xie Jin is a favorite of Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince Regent. He is courageous, smart, and has no scruples in his behavior. The Prince Regent is always there to take care of him. I don't think he needs you as a father in the court. He escorted her. The King of Huainan is a straight-tempered person who speaks out what he says, especially in front of this powerful chief minister. He doesn't bother to hide it. Xie Jin is young and promising, and the regent has a high regard. I'm afraid you don't have to be your age to be in your current position. If you, father and son, are both powerful ministers in the court, even if your Majesty and the regent are not suspicious, other ministers will have ideas. Xie Xiaofu said, "Although your Majesty is a woman, you are broad-minded and tolerant of others, and the regent puts great emphasis on capable ministers. You don't have to do this with me. Flattery in front of me will have no effect," King Huainan said. "I only know that a big tree attracts the wind. No matter how wise your Majesty and the regent are, or how loyal your Xie family is, it won't change. There are risks involved in a single family, and I will not let my son fall into such danger. The sageness of one generation of kings does not mean the sageness of successive kings, and the loyalty of one generation of powerful ministers does not mean the loyalty of every generation of powerful ministers. Even if King Huainan is not a person who likes to flatter others, he also knows in his heart that kings like Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince Regent are rare even in 1,000 years. Before they abdicate, they can be sure that they will not kill innocent ministers indiscriminately. No loyal ministers will be wronged due to unreasonable suspicion, and powerful ministers will not be tolerated. However, countless examples in history have verified the principle that prosperity must inevitably decline. An unparalleled family and powerful ministers have too much power, which is often accompanied by the expansion of ambition and desire. This is human nature. No one can confidently say that he is a saint and can resist the temptation of fame and fortune. Driven. No matter how wise the kings are, they cannot live forever. The change of dynasties and the inheritance of the throne mean that the wise kings will also leave, but the prosperous dynasty and the prominent family are still there. Who can guarantee that the next generation of kings will still be so wise? Who can guarantee that the next generation of a prominent family will still be loyal and will not make a wrong step? The prince is deeply concerned, and Xie admires it. Xie Xiaofu said, "It's not that I haven't thought about retiring for a lifetime, and it's not that I'm attached to this position and don't want to let go, but it's just that the time has not come yet." King Huainan was silent. The regent acted vigorously and resolutely. In the 2 years since he came to Dongling, he had stabilized the throne, purged the court, and appointed loyal ministers and generals whom he could trust. But the prince must know that Xie Jin and Yao Yao are still young, and they can do things without any scruples. As elders, we must always remind ourselves. Xie Xiaofu said in a calm tone, "Because Jin'er is too bold in doing things, I have to stay in the court to protect them for the time being. If I retreat now, with Jin'er's behavior, the veterans in the court will definitely impeach them every now and then. Your Majesty, the regent can't finish just handling the impeachment memorial every day, so he still has extra energy to do other things." King Huainan frowned. "Even if you retreat and your power is still there, it is impossible for the ministers to really have no scruples at all. What's more, with Xie Jin's temper, I'm afraid that the ministers will be punished by him before they even start impeachment." Xie Xiaofu slowly shook his head. "Your Majesty has been guarding the border all year round and does not understand the dangers of the court. I am not entirely here for Jin'er. The General Yao Yao needs me and Jinner to pay more attention. He is relatively simple-minded and has enough brains as a general. Yes, but after all, he has never experienced the intrigues in the court. You mean my son is stupid? King Huainan frowned. Prime Minister Xie was silent for a moment, and looked at the King of Huainan in surprise. Why would I think so? Yao Yao is the son trained by the prince, a young general favored by the regent, and a good hand in the military camp. Who dares to say that he is stupid? The King of Huainan snorted coldly. Simple and stupid are not the same thing. I just said that he is less exposed to conspiracies and tricks, has no intention of harming others, and is less defensive, so someone needs to watch him in the imperial capital. Prime Minister Xie said, the prince is far away in Huainan and can't take care of him, but he must be concerned about his son. I will be here in the future. Except for the different responsibilities of the two, I dare to guarantee that Yao Yao will be the same as Jinner, and he will never be bullied by anyone. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 675. To be honest, if Xian Yuanyao was a girl, or Xie Jin was a girl, and there was a relative who was so kind to his son and cared about him wholeheartedly, the King of Huainan would definitely be moved. But they were both men. The King of Huainan felt complicated for a while. Jinner and Yao Yao are both proud and promising men. Although they chose this special relationship, in my opinion, they are more sympathetic and complementary to each other, rather than the hobbies that many dignitaries love to play. Xie Shaofu rarely spoke to his peers in a serious manner. As elders, no matter whether we are willing in our hearts or not, since we have acquiesced to their choice, we don't have to worry too much about other issues. Who gets married is just a joke. Who can really treat who as a girl? The King of Huainan didn't say anything and drank a sip of tea in silence. Prime Minister Xie made a solemn promise, don't worry, Your Majesty, I will treat Yao Yao as my own son, and love him as I love Jinner, without any deviation. The King of Huainan said coldly, Xie Jin's temperament is completely like your father, very cunning. Jinner has more thoughts and a more flexible mind. Prime Minister Xie thought he was praising Xie Jin. Such a temperament is suitable for the court. After all, dealing with a group of old foxes all day long, the mind is not enough, and you don't know when you will be killed. In this way, he can protect Yao Yao in the future. The King of Huainan is definitely not a match for Prime Minister Xie in terms of words, but he knows that there is nothing wrong with what Prime Minister Xie said. No matter what attitude he holds in his heart about this matter, even if he reluctantly acquiesces, he has acquiesced in the end. In the future, he will definitely hope that the two young people Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao can go further and further. It is indeed better to have someone to support them than to be alone. The King of Huainan had nothing to say, so he stood up and said calmly, I want to go to the palace to see the emperor. There's news from the palace that His Majesty and the regent are busy tonight and won't see anyone. Prime Minister Xie said, Your Majesty will stay at the Xie family for one night. I've ordered people to prepare some light wine. We haven't seen each other for a long time, so let's have a good drink together. The King of Huainan looked at him suspiciously. When did the news from the palace come out? Your Majesty, don't distrust me so much. I still don't dare to do something like falsely conveying the imperial edict. Prime Minister Xie sighed, it's true. If you don't believe it, go out and ask Xie Jin and Yao Yao. The King of Huainan believed that although the father and son of the Xie family were not very reliable, they would not do anything stupid. He pondered for a moment and nodded slowly. Prime Minister Xie walked out of the study and quickly ordered the servants to prepare a table of good wine and food. The King of Huainan actually had his own palace, but he hadn't lived there for a long time and was already very unfamiliar. Since Prime Minister Xie warmly entertained him, he naturally had no reason to refuse. Xian Yuanyao, who was waiting for news in Jinyuan, learned that his father stayed at the Xie family for lunch and drank with Prime Minister Xie. He couldn't help but exclaimed, Your father really deserves the name of an old fox. How could he deal with his father so quickly? How can Yao Yao talk like that? Xiejin pinched his face. My father will be your father in the future, you have to be careful when talking to elders. What old fox, it's impolite. Xian Yuanyao slapped his claws away. Don't change the subject, tonight is my chance to get back, if you dare to fool me again, Xiejin, I will never let you go. Xiejin caught his face and kissed him hard. Yao Yao is really persistent. Okay, I will let you get what you want tonight. Xian Yuanyao looked at him with a slanted look. Don't lie to me. Yao Yao's words really hurt my heart. Xiejin sighed. Am I so dishonest? You have no integrity. Don't swear. Xiejin flicked his forehead. Let's go to dinner too, eat more tonight, and you will have the strength to work after eating. Xian Yuanyao's face turned red, secretly cursing his shamelessness. But the little leopard is a little leopard after all. When he is innocent, he is so cute that people want to bully him. But once he gets serious, he is definitely not easy to fool. Xiejin's guidance is effective in the past 2 days. The little leopard has basically mastered the essence. After eating and drinking and taking a bath, Xian Yuanyao finally got what he wanted and ravaged Xiejin over and over again, and was completely proud of himself. Of course, it was mainly because Xiejin was willing to cooperate and was particularly submissive in his attitude. He really did what he said and let Xian Yuanyao toss him over and over again. It was just that understanding and knowing was one thing, but when it came to practice, it was always a little unsatisfactory. It was either a little clumsy or too rude, which caused Xiejin, the master, to suffer a lot and endure some pain that he should not have endured. For the whole night, Xian Yuanyao was so excited that he even lost control. As a result, Xiejin was tortured to death, with bruises all over his body, looking like he had really been harmed. In the second half of the night, Xian Yuanyao looked at his masterpiece and couldn't help feeling guilty and distressed. He took Xiamiren to bathe and change clothes, rubbed her waist and legs considerately, and was ordered around by Xiamiren like a good husband. The next morning, when the two went to pay respects to King Huainan, Xian Yuanyao was full of energy and spirits. Even though he hadn't slept much the night before, he still looked energetic. Xiejin was not so good. His walking posture was extremely unnatural, even a little stiff, his face was slightly pale, and he frowned from time to time, which was in sharp contrast to the spirited Xian Yuanyao. King Huainan stared at his face thoughtfully, and his eyebrows, which had been tightly locked for days, slowly relaxed. It seems that his son is really a husband. So it seems that it was not good to use a military stick on Xiejin in Huainan that day. After all, she is a young wife. How can a father-in-law beat a daughter-in-law? The king of Huainan was in a complicated mood. The two greeted each other, and the king of Huainan did not make things difficult for them, even if he saw that Xiejin was in such a bad state, he did not want to make things difficult for them. Besides, he still had to go to the palace to see the emperor. He put on a majestic expression and scolded them casually, and then sent them away. I don't know what Prime Minister Xie said to my father last night. My father seems to have completely accepted the fact Xian Yuanyao took care of Xiejin and deliberately walked slower. Ajin, what do you think? Xiejin glanced at him. I think. He still needs to think. Do you really think that his crime last night was in vain? That. Xian Yuanyao turned his head and looked at Xiejin's pale face, and his tone was gentler. Does it hurt? Do you want me to help you? Because he had felt the same way, Xian Yuanyao knew that Xiejin must be feeling bad at this time. If he was not afraid of being seen in public, he would have wanted to carry Xiejin back to Jinyuan. Xiejin sighed. Who caused it? Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment, and curled his lip. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 676. After returning to Jinyuan, Xiejin lay down on the bed. Yao Yao, I'm sore all over, massage it for me. Xianyuan Yao had just gotten an advantage, so of course he would respond to any request and come whenever he was called. He sat on the edge of the bed and massaged Xiejin carefully from his shoulders to his lumbar spine. The martial artist's hand strength was just right, and the massage was comfortable, which made Xiejin moan continuously. Yao Yao Xiejin tilted his head and ordered, I'm thirsty, pour me a cup of tea. Xianyuan Yao stopped, stood up to pour tea, and when he came back with the teacup, he asked with concern, are you hungry? Xiejin shook his head, not bad. Xianyuan Yao handed the teacup to him, and Xiejin only moved his mouth but not his hands. Yao Yao, feed me. Xianyuan Yao frowned at him, is your hand broken? No. Xiejin raised his hand weakly, but I don't have much strength, Yao Yao was too hard last night. Xianyuan Yao was speechless, and his handsome face couldn't help but feel hot, and obediently sent the tea to his mouth. No wonder there is always an unwritten saying in the brothel that if a man is satisfied in some aspects, his temper will be as soft as a cat, and he will respond to any request and give whatever he wants. Those brothel girls like to make some appropriate requests after having a hearty pleasure. As long as they don't meet stingy or violent men, more than 90% of them can get what they want. This sentence is no exception for Xiejin and Xianyuan Yao. Xiejin finished a cup of tea and said, are you tired, Yao Yao? Do you want to sleep for a while? I want to eat, Xianyuan Yao said, I consumed too much energy last night and I'm hungry. Xiejin was silent for a moment. Well, I'm a little hungry too, what do you want to eat? I want to eat beef, Xianyuan Yao blurted out, I think I can eat a cow now. Xiejin was silent for a moment, turned his head and looked at Xianyuan Yao calmly. Yao Yao, are you very excited now? Are you in a very good mood? Very happy, so happy that you can't speak coherently. Yes, very happy, Xianyuan Yao nodded, I hope I can be so happy every day in the future. Xiejin's mouth twitched. So happy every day? Is this trying to push the envelope and completely reverse the previous disadvantage and take him down in one go? Xianyuan Yao walked out, called the servants of Jinyuan, and ordered them to prepare some sumptuous breakfast, bring 2 baskets of buns, 2 plates of steamed dumplings, 2 bowls of porridge, and some other food, well, 1 plate of braised beef, 2 roast chickens and roast ducks. The servants looked subtle, eating roast chicken and roast duck so early in the morning. Xiejin, who was lying on the bed, was speechless for a while, and then laughed for no reason. What are you laughing at? Xianyuan Yao walked back to the inner room and saw Xiejin laughing alone, like a fool, and immediately looked at him unkindly. Is there a problem with me eating roast chicken and roast duck? No, no problem. Xiejin shook his head hurriedly, it's just that I don't know if there is any in the kitchen so early in the morning. Even if there is, it's not fresh anymore, and the taste is definitely not good. Yao Yao should not eat it? Let's just eat some steamed dumplings and buns. Xianyuan Yao frowned and sat on the edge of the bed for a while before he really realized that it was early in the morning. Although he was not upside down at night, his excitement did make him ignore some things. For example, it is not suitable to eat greasy food in the morning. It doesn't matter, he said calmly, I guess that person will find out that there is no roast chicken or roast duck after going to the kitchen, and then he will just take some other things to make up the number, and then ask you, the young master, if you want to eat something else. Xiejin hummed, continue pressing. Xianyuan Yao paused, slowly turned his head to look at him, his eyes fell on the back of his head, and slowly said, Xiejin, do you treat me as a servant? Yao Yao said this. Xiejin chuckled, if Yao Yao wants to take the initiative for a long time in the future, then isn't it your job to serve your wife? You are impatient after just a while. Xianyuan Yao choked, no. Then press it. Xiejin lay quietly on the pillow, closed his eyes, and looked lazy, I don't feel comfortable anywhere, Yao Yao, do it again from head to toe for me. Xian Yuanyao looked at him for a long time, and finally began to serve this hypocritical ancestor. The husband-changing mode was turned on in Jinyuan, but at this time, a woman in the princess's mansion asked for an audience. The daughter of the Ruan family, the princess sat on the main seat, drinking tea elegantly. I don't think I've heard of her. Ruan Qingying, the eldest daughter of the Ruan family, is Miss Qingling's sister. Oh, the princess's expression was indifferent. Then let her in. Yes. Ruan Qingying quickly followed the housekeeper of the princess's mansion into the mansion and entered the main courtyard. She lowered her head and eyes all the way and dared not look around. She tried her best to maintain the dignified etiquette of the daughter of aristocratic families. When she stepped over the threshold, she knelt down respectfully and kowtowed. The servant Qingying greets Her Highness the Princess. The princess's eyes turned slightly, looking at the brightly dressed woman in front of him. He said calmly, Miss Ruan. Yes, I am Ruan Qingying, the legitimate daughter of the Zipping Marquis's mansion. Why do you want to see me so early in the morning? It's about my sister, Ruan Qingying said respectfully. My sister Qingling was a doctor for the palace maids before. This year, she has reached the age of marriage. Mother ordered me to come and ask Her Royal Highness the Princess whether my sister should continue to stay in the princess service or let her go back to discuss marriage. The princess looked indifferent. Has your family already planned to arrange a marriage for Qingling? Ruan Qingying lowered her eyes. Mother has this idea, but it depends on your opinion, Your Highness. Since Qingling is the younger sister, why are you, the eldest sister, thinking about arranging a marriage for her before she gets married? Ruan Qingying pursed her lips, reporting to the princess, my marriage has been decided. Oh, the princess took a sip of tea slowly. Which family? The son of Lord Ye, the minister of the Ministry of Revenue. The princess didn't say anything. These were things she had known for a long time, and she didn't really care, but just asked casually. Putting the teacup on the table, she said calmly, as far as I know, Qingling seems to have a lover. Ruan Qingying pursed her lips and whispered, she is just a concubine's daughter. According to the rules, her marriage must be arranged by her mother. I can't control this. The princess smiled faintly. Your Majesty seems to be interested in arranging a marriage for Qingling, but if the Ruan family objects, you can ask your mother to go to the palace to see who has the final say between her and the queen. Ruan Qingying's face turned pale, and she kowtowed and admitted her mistake. This is not what I meant, Your Highness, please forgive me. I didn't know Your Majesty intends to grant Qingling a marriage. It doesn't matter, the princess said calmly. I'm telling you now. Go back and tell your mother that Qingling will stay in the palace to serve His Majesty in the future, and her marriage will be decided by the queen, so you and your mother don't have to worry about it. Ruan Qingying was slightly shocked, having heard the indifference in the princess' words, and her hands hanging in her sleeves unconsciously clenched a little, gritted her teeth and thought to herself, it must be that bitch Ruan Qingling who is spreading rumors in front of the princess, otherwise how could the noble princess care about the marriage of a little medical girl? However, she didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction on her face. Ruan Qingying bowed her head respectfully and a little uneasy and said yes, and then quickly left. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 677. Ruan Qingying almost walked out of the gate of the princess's mansion in a cold sweat. When she stepped on the carriage, her legs were weak, and she staggered and almost fell. She turned around and shouted, "Are you all blind? Don't you know how to help?" The face of the personal maid changed, and she quickly reached out to help her get on the carriage. After getting into the carriage, Ruan Qingying leaned against the carriage in shock, clenched the handkerchief in her hand, bit her lips lightly, and her expression gradually became cold. Ruan Qingling, you are really good at tricks. You actually have the ability to let Her Majesty the Queen grant you a marriage. How can a little concubine's daughter have such a big face? She still refused to believe this evil. The carriage turned around and drove slowly, carrying her towards the West City. When she returned to the Ruan family, Ruan Qingying told Tao the truth about the incident. Tao was shocked and angry. The queen wants to grant Ruan Qingling a marriage. That's what the princess said. Ruan Qingying's tone was not very good, and her face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. What do you think mother should do? What should I do? Tao sat on the chair in a somewhat inappropriate manner, silent and gloomy. If it really doesn't work, let my daughter marry alone. Ruan Qingying thought about it, and a cold look flashed across her face. Lord Ye is an important official of the court. When I marry Mr. Ye, the Ye family specifically asked Ruan Qingling to marry as a dowry. Ruan Qingying's face changed slightly. Specified her as a dowry? Why? I don't know. Tao shook her head slowly. This is what Madame Ye said in front of me. She said that if both daughters marry together, the betrothal gifts will be doubled, but the extra ones have nothing to do with Qingling, and they will all be counted as your betrothal gifts. Ruan Qingying didn't know what to say for a moment. What is the Ye family up to? Let the two daughters of the Ruan family marry together, one as the main wife, and the other as a dowry as a concubine, and even give an extra betrothal gift for this? It seems that Qingling, the concubine, is still important in the hearts of the Ye family, but the extra betrothal gifts are given in the name of marrying the main wife, and have nothing to do with the concubine. It really makes people wonder what they are thinking. Ying you know our family is not well off now. Your brother has owed so many debts recently and is waiting for money to help him out. Tao's face was filled with worry. The betrothal gift from the Ye family can at least solve the urgent problem. Ruan Qingying sank, but the request of the Ye family is too outrageous. I originally thought that the dowry was decided by my mother herself, but I didn't expect that it was Madame Ye who proposed it. Why did they do this? Ruan Qingling is just a little concubine's daughter. Is she worthy of their special attention? Although she didn't give her the title of wife, she was willing to give twice the betrothal gift. Doesn't it mean that in their eyes, the legitimate daughter of the Ruan family is worth the same as the concubine's daughter? Ruan Qingying was given the position of the legitimate wife because she was a legitimate daughter, and the other two were the same. Tao didn't say anything. She was also wondering why the Ye family asked Ruan Qingling to marry over. If Her Majesty really wanted to grant Ruan Qingling a marriage, how should she talk to Madame Ye about this matter? Both mother and daughter had their own thoughts, and at this time, the little concubine who was despised by the daughter of the Ruan family was carrying the freshly boiled medicine into the Dajhan palace, kneeling on the table in front of Rong Yu. The cold and noble regent sat in a chair behind the desk, looking through a memorial with his eyes downcast. He was wearing a large and thick cloak. Not far away, a pot of charcoal was burning vigorously, and the whole palace was warm and cozy, as if in a sultry summer. Qingyang stood behind him, lowered his eyes and massaged his shoulders and neck, silent, only glanced at Qingling when she came in with the medicine. The smell of medicine came to his nose. Rong Yu raised his eyes to take a look, and then lowered his eyes to look at the memorial. Qingling did not urge her. She knew that the medicine was bitter, and it was even more bitter to taste it mouthful by mouthful. After a while, when it was not so hot, it was the best way to drink the medicine in one breath. However, she would not leave until the regent finished drinking the medicine. She had to see the regent drink the medicine with her own eyes. Rong Yu did not speak. He silently read through the several memorials at hand. He looked up outside the palace and could not help wondering what the morning court would be like at this time. It rained a little last night, and the dull feeling in the second half of the night dissipated a little. The weather was pretty good this morning. The haze dissipated, the weather cleared up, and the sun was warm and bright, dispelling some of the chill in the air. "You leave first," an indifferent voice sounded, with an order that could not be violated. "Drink the medicine later." "Yes." Qingling bowed and left, but did not leave too far. She just retreated from the palace to the palace door, and her eyes were still on the bowl of soup in front of Rong. Rong Yuzhen leaned against the back of the chair, and was about to pick up the soup, but heard footsteps outside. "Your Majesty! Long live the Queen!" Rong Yu raised his eyes, and a woman in a bright yellow dragon robe walked in from outside the palace, carrying a bright halo, with a beautiful face, calm and majestic eyebrows, and a majestic demeanor without anger. Rong Yu's mouth corners unconsciously raised, and his expression was no longer cold and distant, as if there was some special magic, automatically transformed into a gentle mode. "Your Majesty is back so early." Nan 11 took off the thick cloak and gave it to Yin Yu to hang up. He walked to the table and looked down at him. "Why haven't you taken the medicine yet?" "Just when I was about to drink it, you came back," Rong Yu said as he picked up the medicine bowl and calmly began to take the medicine. He drank the whole bowl of medicine, one mouthful at a time. He took a sip of the water handed to him by Nan 11, washed away some of the bitterness in his mouth, and then said, "Why did you leave the court so early today? Didn't the king of Waynan go to the palace to see the emperor?" Nan 11 held her chin and looked at him. "He went to the palace. I have asked the Zhongzhenjia Yuan to handle the child's matter. There is nothing else." Rong Yu hummed. "Did Xiejing go to court?" "No, he took a leave." Nan 11's voice was gentle. "There was nothing major happening in the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Revenue these 2 days. It's understandable that he took a leave to rest for 2 days. As long as his subordinates can find him if they have something to do. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered." Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 678. Rong Yu stood up, took Nan 11's hand and walked to the inner palace, and sent everyone out. Yunyu made hot tea for the 2 masters, brought several plates of snacks freshly made in the imperial kitchen, and then left with the palace guests. "How are you feeling today?" "Except for being a little hot, I don't feel anything else." Rong Yu turned around and motioned to Nan 11 to touch the back of his neck. "It must be sweating." Nan 11 stretched out her hand and touched it, and she did break out a thin layer of sweat. Rong Yu took Nan 11 and sat down in front of the couch, encircling her whole body in his arms. His voice was gentle and soft, "But I know 11 is doing it for my own good. It's okay to be a little hot." Although this sounds quite sweet, Nan 11 doesn't buy it. "Don't you say that martial arts practitioners are not afraid of cold and heat? There are only 2 pots of charcoal fire in this hall, so it should not be too hot to bear." Rong Yu was speechless for a moment, then raised his lips and smiled. "What I mean is that 11's care for me is like the warm sun in summer, warming me from head to toe." "The warm sunshine in spring is better," Nan 11 corrected seriously. "The sun in summer is too hot and can burn people to death." Rong Yu hummed. 11 is right. "But what I mean is, why are you sweating?" Nan 11 frowned. "Are you weak?" Rong Yu was silent. "Should I have someone prepare the coffin in 2 days?" "Shut up." Nan 11 stared at him with an unkind expression. "What nonsense are you talking about? You've only been alone in the palace for less than an hour, and you're starting to think wildly and moan for nothing." "No." Rong Yu shook his head quickly. "I was joking." "No joking allowed." "Yes." Rong Yu kissed her face and finally confessed honestly, "When you went to court, I did my exercises to ward off the cold for a while. There was a stove next to me. After doing the exercises, I sweated a little. I planned to waiting for you to come back and take a bath together. After a pause, after taking the medicated bath last night, I felt a warm air current in my body all night long. It must be that the medicine has taken effect." Nan 11 pondered. "The medicine Chu Nanyi gave you must be good, and the effect is obvious and normal. Although Chu Nanyi said that it cannot be completely eradicated, no matter what the disease is, it depends on the doctor's conditioning method and the efficacy of the medicinal materials used. When treating his master, Chu Nanyi will definitely try his best to find the best medicinal materials, even if it cannot be completely cured, and can be nursed back to normal as much as possible. Only the patient's cooperation is required during the recuperation period. Nan 11 felt relieved after hearing that he was okay, and finally had the mood to make fun of him. Chu Nanyi said that the medicinal materials used in medicinal baths are very expensive. As the regent of Dongling and Dazhu, he is the owner of Juxiao Pavilion's wealth. The medicinal materials Chu Nanyi used for you are actually expensive, which shows that they are really expensive. You might as well think about how much silver it costs for a medicinal bath. Then what should we do? Rong Yu lowered his eyebrows and looked at her. I won't take any medicinal baths after that, so I can save money. Nan 11 raised her hand and pinched his ear. Rong Yu chuckled. 11er is becoming more and more like a mistress of the house. Huh, Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. Being the matron of the house? That's not right, Rong Yu thought for a while, and somehow it brought back a relatively distant memory. I remember reading a book by chance before, and I forgot the name. That country seemed to be a real country where women were respected. Women are respected, men are vassals and have a low status. The husband calls his wife the wife's master. Men must serve the wife's master wholeheartedly in order to get a little favor. Yes, what I just wanted to say is that 11er is becoming more and more like a wife's master. Nan 11's expression was subtle and she looked at him with strange eyes. A country where women are respected. Wife? What? Rong Yu nodded. It should be. But I doubt it was a ridiculous story made up by some boring person. It definitely does not exist in history. I don't think it's possible either. Nan 11 began to analyze with him rationally. You see, men are naturally stronger than women. They are physically stronger and can endure hardships much better than women. Only men can be used on the battlefield, even if they occasionally do. There are only a few women in command, and Chu Hongii has only been born in Dongling so far. Even the most ordinary civilians still need men to be responsible for the main physical work. If a weak woman is allowed to take charge, the world will be in chaos. Rong Yu was silent for a moment. The book seems to say that women are stronger and men are more delicate. Nan 11 was silent, her eyes getting weirder. She looked Rong Yu up and down. His tall and straight body was slim and slim. Although he was not strong, he definitely had an unparalleled strength. And it is no exaggeration to say that if Rong Yu is willing to take action, she, the Queen of Dongling, is not strong enough for Rong Yu to crush her to death with just one finger. Delicate. She really couldn't imagine what a frail man looked like, and how frail he was compared to a woman. Nan 11 lowered her head and looked at herself. Are you more delicate than me? Rong Yu added another important fact, men can give birth to children. Nan 11 was stunned. What kind of strange country is that? Why is everything so fantasy? The air seemed to become extremely strange, and she couldn't help but glance at Rong Yu's abdomen. She really couldn't imagine the man with a pregnant belly. Who has such a rich imagination? Nan 11 said silently. If men could really have children, Xiejian and Xianyuanya wouldn't have to worry about heirs. No, Rong Yu corrected calmly, if they were born in a country where women are respected, people like Xianyuanya and Xiejin would have been buried long ago. Nan 11 was silent for a moment, then smiled. Shentang? Well, those who are shocking and dare to challenge the secular and female authority should indeed be punished. Just like how many places now treat women who misbehave, there seems to be a punishment method like Shentang that is more unacceptable. Since it is a fictional story, why not read it as a book of myths? Turning over a few pages at your leisure may make you feel very happy. Nan 11 raised her eyes. Where is that book? Is it still available? Rong Yu thought for a while. I forgot where I saw it. Let me think about it, maybe I can think of it. It's best if you can find it. It doesn't matter if you can't find it. It's not that important, Nan 11 said, but what I'm curious about is, how could you see that kind of book? You shouldn't have found it yourself. Then who gave it to you? Rong Yu glanced at him. Nan 11's eyes were subtle and thoughtful. Such a book should not be an ordinary thing that is readily available among the people, so the possibility of others giving it to you is extremely small. It seems to be in the library of the imperial palace of the Zhou dynasty. Wrong, you recalled. It's been a long time, so long that I can't remember clearly. I probably wasn't that old when I saw that book. After reading it, I just felt ridiculous. And put it back casually. If you are lucky, the book may still be in the Dazhu library. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 679. Nan 11 hummed, I'll go back and see if I have a chance in the future. Wrong, you pondered, you can have someone send it over. Nan 11 was surprised, who should send it? Choose you. Nan 11 was stunned and frowned at him. Just for a piece of nonsense that I don't know is still there, you asked the emperor of the Zhou dynasty to put aside his court affairs, the civil and military affairs of the dynasty, and the concubines in the harem, and come all the way. Come to Tanglin. Wrong, you looked at her without saying a word. Don't look at me like that. You are a strong and ruthless regent. No matter how much you pretend to be innocent, you can't turn into a cute little white rabbit. Nan 11 said angrily, what do you think? Let the emperor of the Zhou dynasty travel all the way across thousands of mountains and rivers to deliver a storybook. It's absolutely impossible to act like this, and we can't set this precedent, otherwise it will happen again in the future. Wrong, you turned to look at the tables, picked up the pot and poured 2 cups of tea, and handed 1 cup to Nan 11. Apart from the audience with the king of Huainan, is there anything else going on this morning? Nan 11 got off him, walked to the side and sat down. There are no important matters for the time being, but the censor has impeached King Huainan and Xie Xiaofu. In addition, the ministers also expressed obvious surprise at the fact that the regent did not come to court. Wrong, you was silent. When King Huainan entered the imperial city, whether he came by himself or by order, the first thing he did when he entered the imperial city was to get dressed and enter the palace to meet the saint. If he came by himself, he should immediately enter the palace to apologize. 1510 Explain clearly the reason why you came to the capital. If you came here under an order, you should immediately go to the palace to pay homage to your majesty, instead of neglecting the imperial order and doing other things, or even communicating privately with the ministers of the court. Nan 11 smiled lightly. These are the exact words used by the censors to impeach King Huainan, and they sound very reasonable. Wrong, you nodded slowly. The purpose of the censor was to supervise the officials. He dared to pick up on the improper behavior of the officials in the court. It was his duty to have freedom of speech regardless of whether the views expressed were right or wrong, or whether the words were fierce. But the premise is that official business must be done fairly, without any selfish motives, no malicious intentions, and no deliberate intention to eliminate opponents. Otherwise, it will also become unacceptable to the king. If I can't handle such a trivial matter, what kind of queen would I be? Nan 11 took a sip of tea and said in a leisurely tone, I told those censors that after King Huainan entered the imperial city, I asked Xie Xiaoxu to receive him. Because I am busy with government affairs, I don't have time to see the king of Huainan for the time being. This reason is enough to shut everyone's mouth. Once Her Majesty the Queen speaks out, who dares not to listen, whether it is Chief Minister Xie, Prime Minister Liu, or the King of Huainan who has come from afar. As for whether Her Majesty the Queen has passed on this oral message, it is not important. What is important is that Her Majesty the Queen said that she has passed it on. Then this matter can only be because Xie Xiaofu received the order to receive the King of Huainan, and there is no other reason. Nan 11 and Rong Yu chatted for a while about minor matters. Not long after, Xie Xiaofu personally delivered today's memorials. He was accompanied by the eunuch in charge of the royal study, and a stack of memorials was held by the eunuch in the palm of his hand. Upon arriving at the Dajhan Palace, all the documents were handed over to Qing Yang, who was responsible for delivering them to the palace, and respectfully informed, "Your Majesty, thank you, Chief Minister, for asking for an audience." Nan 11 turned her eyes, "Let the chief assistant come in." Xie Xiaofu smelled the smell of medicine as soon as he entered the palace, and frowned slightly. He was originally wondering why the regent didn't go to the morning court today, but now he seemed to have understood something. After saluting, he went straight to the point, "Is the regent not in good health?" "It's nothing wrong, you didn't hide it, some old problems, just take care of them." "Old problem?" Xie Xiaofu secretly thought, since the regent came to Dongling, he feels like an extremely strong, indestructible iron man who cannot be hurt, or even get sick. What kind of old problem does his body have? "Mr. Xie, is there something wrong?" Xie Xiaofu came to his senses, bowed and replied, "I would like to explain to His Majesty and the regent what happened last night." Although Nan 11 defended himself in court and reconciled things with King Huainan for him, he stopped King Huainan's car without his permission and led people halfway to Xie's house. No matter how he did it, none of them are right. They simply have no authority over the emperor. If they were serious about it, the private acceptance of the censor's impeachment could be pinned on them. Although he and the king of Huainan were engaged in the lifelong affairs of their respective sons, outsiders did not know the inside story after all. Moreover, the more powerful an important minister is, the more cautious his behavior should be. It is not a mistake that he should make if he easily lets the censor take advantage of him. Even if he had no intention of hiding the incident last night, there is nothing to hide. Department, but the rules are still the rules, and people must not think that he, the chief assistant, has no laws and regulations. It doesn't matter, Nan 11's voice was calm, as long as it doesn't happen next time. Xie Xiaofu said, "Yes, Your Majesty is wise." The 2 days King Huainan has been staying in the imperial capital, the chief assistant will be responsible for entertaining him, Nan 11 said, "I have been inconvenienced recently, and the regent is not very happy. I don't have the energy to worry about outside things, so I will ask the chief assistant. Those who can do more work." Xie chief assistant happily accepted the order, "Your Majesty, don't worry, I will definitely make the guests of the king of Huainan feel like home." After leaving the Dajhan Palace, Xie Xiaofu returned home and learned that Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao had not gotten up yet and were standing outside the gate of Jinyuan, frowning deeply. Although he and King Huainan agreed on their matter, are these two people so ridiculous that they haven't gotten up from sleeping in broad daylight? He ordered the Jinyuan servants, "When the young master wakes up, ask him to find me in the study." "Yes, sir." Last night's exercise was too intense, so Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao slept until the evening. After waking up, the two lingered in bed for a while before getting up to change clothes and wash up. After they were ready, the servant came in to ask. The prince said in the morning that he wanted to eat roast chicken and roast duck. The kitchen prepared a lot today. Can you bring it now? Xie Jin nodded, "Bring it?" Yes, the servant was about to leave, but remembered the order of the Prime Minister. "The master asked you to go to the study." "Go to the study?" Xian Yuanyao came over in a white robe. "What are you going to the study for?" The servant took a look and was surprised to find that the clothes worn by the Prince Yao looked familiar, as if they were the robes of his son. "What are you looking at?" Xie Jin said unkindly. "No," the servant bowed his head hurriedly. "The master came to Jinyuan this morning and learned that the young master and the Prince Yao were sleeping, so he told you to get up and go to the study. He didn't say anything else." "Well," Xie Jin said, "I know, you can go down." "Yes, I'll take my leave." Xie Jin turned his head to look at Xian Yuanyao, looked at him carefully for a while, and smiled. "Yao Yao looks really good in my clothes, he is handsome, and looks great. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered." Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 680. Xian Yuanyao's expression was solemn, full of the majesty of the head of the family. Don't tease your husband. Xiejin almost burst out laughing. Yes, he lowered his eyes as if pretending to be real, and bowed to Xian Yuanyao according to the most standard ladies' etiquette. My husband, please accept my respects. Xian Yuanyao stared at his instantly changed posture. His expression was really hard to describe, and he couldn't help but murmur in his heart, if this person grew up in a troupe, he would definitely become the most dazzling pillar of the stage, and everyone in the troupe would have to rely on him for their livelihood. Ajin, he said sincerely, if you can't become a powerful official in the future, you might as well try to sing in a theater troupe to make a living, or go to a famous brothel in the imperial capital to perform, and you will be the mainstay and the most beautiful woman. Xiejin stood up straight and stretched out his hand to pinch Xian Yuanyao's face. Yao Yao is so cruel. If I can't become a powerful official, you can't support me? You have to let me go out and show my face, perform and smile to support myself. Why do I have to support you? Xian Yuanyao frowned. Isn't it good to be self-reliant? Change the environment and shine, maybe you can even get a name in the history books. Xiejin raised his eyebrows. What name? The world's #1 actor, or the eternal male prostitute? Xian Yuanyao finally couldn't help laughing. The world's #1 actor sounds good, very impressive. Okay, hurry up and eat. Xiejin looked up and saw the servants coming in with trays of bowls and dishes. They put their arms around his shoulders and pulled him to sit at the table. You eat first. I'll go see what my father wants me to do. I'll be back soon. I'll go with you. No need. Xiejin pushed him to sit on the chair, speaking leisurely, it shouldn't be anything particularly important. I'll come after I see it. Hearing this, Xian Yuanyao no longer forced him. The servant poured him some tea and said respectfully, Prince Yao, please have some tea. Others placed the dishes neatly on the table. The meat was fragrant: roast chicken, roast duck, braised beef, Buddha jumps over the wall, honey pigeon. Xian Yuanyao looked at the dazzling array of dishes in front of him with some subtlety. Although he was appetizing just by looking at them, wasn't it too much? He seemed to have warned Xiejin not to waste food before. Why didn't this man listen? My lord, it's ready. Xian Yuanyao said in a light tone, you guys go down first. Yes. The servants filed out. Xian Yuanyao sat alone holding a teacup, obviously not planning to start eating before Xiejin came back. He was even thinking about how the master took care of Her Majesty the Queen when he had meals in the palace. It is natural for a husband to take care of his wife. Why don't you eat? Xiejin came back quickly. When he entered the room and saw Xian Yuanyao sitting still, he asked curiously, not to your taste. Waiting for you to come back. Xian Yuanyao turned his head. What did your father tell you? Nothing. Let us both be careful and not delay the business. Xiejin sat down and served him a bowl of soup. Today's morning court was only the queen. The master stayed in the Dajhan palace and did not go to court. The master did not go to court. Xian Yuanyao frowned. What happened? Her Majesty is pregnant. If there is no special reason, the master would not leave the pregnant queen and let her go to court alone. Father said that when he went to the Dajhan palace to deliver the memorial, he smelled the smell of medicine in the palace. Xiejin frowned. The master is in good health, there should be no problem, right? I don't know what medicine is sold in the gourd. Xian Yuanyao remained silent. At present, the court is calm and there should be no special things that require the regent to pretend to be sick to solve. Besides, it is the first time that the queen has gone to court alone and dealt with all the civil and military officials alone. This doesn't make sense at all. I think there may be something wrong with the master's health. Xian Yuanyao pursed his lips. Have you seen Chu Nanyi these 2 days? Xiejin frowned. He seems to have left the imperial city. What did he do? I don't know, I didn't ask. Ajin, will there be any problem with the master's health? Xian Yuanyao's face changed slightly. What if? What if? Don't think about it. Xiejin's face became serious. Hurry up and eat. After eating, go to the palace and see, won't you know? Xian Yuanyao nodded slowly. He was no longer in a relaxed mood, and he was even less in the mood to think about who should take care of whom. The two of them filled their stomachs like a whirlwind and hurried into the palace. Arriving at the Dajhan palace, after the palace servants informed them, the two of them smelled a scent of medicine when they entered the palace, and their hearts sank at the same time. During the routine greeting, Xian Yuanyao looked up at Rong Yu, who was sitting behind the desk reviewing memorials. His face was noble and indifferent, and there was a sense of oppression between his eyebrows. His complexion looked even better than usual, and he didn't look unwell. And the one reviewing the memorials was the regent. Her Majesty was still sitting aside, grinding, and the scene looked extremely beautiful, quiet, and leisurely, happy and safe. It seemed to be no different from usual. If there was any difference, it should be that the temperature in this palace was quite high, much warmer than outside, and Rong Yu was wearing thick clothes. Xian Yuanyao's eyes fell on the fur cloak on Rong Yu's shoulders. After thinking for a moment, he took the initiative to speak. What symptoms did the master have? Rong Yu looked at him expressionlessly and said nothing. There is nothing wrong with your master's health. I just didn't want him to work too hard, so I found a reason to put him under house arrest in the Dajhan palace and let him have a good rest for 2 days. Nan 11 raised her eyebrows and smiled. Is there any problem? Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment, not knowing what to say. Is there a problem? It seems that there is no problem. Your Majesty is the king of a country. Even if the regent is deprived of his power on the grounds that the harem is not allowed to interfere in politics, he can only stay in the harem and wait for the favor of Her Majesty the Queen in the future. Perhaps this is what the civil and military ministers of the court want. So even if what Nan 11 said was true, Xian Yuanyao couldn't say anything, but he didn't believe this argument at all. My lord, are you afraid of the cold? Xiejin naturally did not ignore that Rong Yu was wearing a little too much today. Why are you wearing so many clothes? It's early winter, the climate is cold, you should wear more. Nan 11 looked at the two people in front of him, each wearing thin spring and autumn robes, and couldn't help frowning. Do you have enough clothes for the two of you? If not, I will send someone to tailor a few thick warm clothes for you. You are wearing too thin clothes, be careful of the cold. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao heard the expression of subtle. Make a few warm clothes? How many warm clothes would the son of the cabinet's chief minister lack? Xiejin vaguely understood something and quickly replied, Thank you, Your Majesty, for your kindness. I have a lot of unworn winter clothes in my closet. You don't need to make new ones. If you make too many, you won't be able to wear them all. Xian Yuan said, I am the same. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your kindness.